Good afternoon, everybody. This is Hunter Mozingo bringing you your daily market insight video for Monday, September 13th, about 5 or 6 minutes after market close here in Jacksonville, Florida, approximately 4:07 p.m. Eastern Time. In today's video, we're going to go over some of the growth stocks that got crushed, some of the ones that came back and showed relative strength. Additionally, I've got a possible shift in leadership in one sector that you might want to take notice of. And beyond that, I've got a handful of stocks and sectors that you're going to want to add to your watch list. You're going to want to pay attention to these because there are some attractive setups happening. There's some strength coming into areas that we haven't seen. So I've got some good stuff for you guys today, as well as how I set alerts on XBI, which is the biotech ETF. I just thought that might be helpful both to the upside and the downside. So let's get into it, folks. So what just happened? Like I mentioned, growth stocks or G5 stocks crushed early on, really sharp selling early this morning for about an hour, really mostly focused in growth stocks. And you might look at what the indices did today and say, well, Hunter, it doesn't look like it was that bad. I would say most leading growth stocks, for the most part, were down anywhere from 2 or 3 to 6% or beyond early this morning, while the S&P was relatively flat to up 1/3 of a percent or 1/2 a percent. So it was a pretty sharp sell-off in growth names while the indices held up. However, QQQ undercut and reclaimed the 21 EMA, a nice strong finish to the day for the markets as opposed to the last 2 days, right? Thursday and Friday, very poor closes. Today we had a pretty good close. So one positive amidst some of the negative today, but market state hasn't changed. Short-term pullback, leaders, okay. We did see some leaders today not act the greatest, some slicing through moving averages, some not really coming back throughout the day, but we also saw some leaders act really well today. So kind of take it with a grain of salt. Maybe it's a shift in leadership, maybe it's not, but you know, for what it's worth, we saw some acting very well, some acting not so great today, but it's just overall a pretty tough day for growth stocks. The market trend has also not changed from Friday. Well, I say that one small change, just to kind of go on the back of what I was saying with leaders there. We did move the small yellow arrow on market leaders, which is going to be right here, to yellow, pointing towards neutral because of some of that action today. Some of the leaders not acting the best, some acting good. So we moved that there. No changes to short term. That stays the same. We're essentially in the same position we were on Friday in regards to what indices are above and below the 21 EMA. So the S&P is below, mid caps below, Dow below, and IWM I think is also below. That's your Russell. Qs were the only one above, and that remains to be the case now. Medium or midterm here, still same scenario, same situation. S&P is above the 50, Qs above the 50, IWM slightly above the 50, NDY and DIA are the reasoning for this little yellow arrow here, as you can see, and the long term remains the same. So before we get to the charts and look at growth stocks that got crushed or a shift in leadership, let's talk about Revere very quickly here. Like I say in every video, if you have any questions, send me an email, you know, asking about whatever stock, whatever sector, how I set an alert, whatever it is, just ask me. I'm happy to respond to you all. And secondly, if you're interested in our strategy, what we do, our approach, you can email me directly. You can ask me whatever you would like to, or you can email any of these guys, Dan, Tim, Merrill, Alex, or Don at revereasset.com as well. So let's get to the charts. And we're going to start with SPY here. And you can see finished green. That a lot of this came really in the last like 30 or 40 minutes of the day. SPY was closer to 444 about 30 or 40 minutes into the close, and we got a good finish. So I'm going to show you that here on a 5-minute chart. As you can see, a nice strong finish to the day for SPY. That is a 5-minute. Now I would like to show you something else here, the 60-minute chart, and you can see how this 445 level has become of importance, and that is going to translate roughly to the 4450 level for SPX, right? So this is SPY, this is an ETF, and I'm using this now because SPX is not fully updated on MarketSmith. It's a little bit behind, just like the NASDAQ composite, but it's going to correspond to about the same level. So you want to watch 445 on SPY, 4450 on SPX. Additionally, to the upside, What I'm really looking at is through this 450 high or 4,500 for SPX. So that's kind of the levels I'm watching there for the S&P. Let's go to the Qs here. There you go, undercut just by a little bit. The 21 EMA there, reclaimed it. Nice finish to the day, same scenario for the Qs. And whereas we want to see the S&P hold that 4450 or SPY hold that 445 level, I really would like to see the Qs hold on to this 375 level here as well. So today it kind of did that, slightly got below it. But the positive is we finished above the 21 EMA. And just another little fact, I know I said this a lot on Friday. Once again, today's lows become very important, right? So the lows of today on QQQ, I'll set an alert here with you, 374.22. And the same thing for the S&P or whatever index you're looking at, or stock for that matter. You want to pay attention to today's lows. If it started out really weak and finished strong, always something you want to watch. Let's go to the Dow. Since this was one of the leaders today, you can see the Dow with some ugly selling here, 5 straight down days, bucking that trend today, putting an up day in, up about 0.75% or so. DIA has really done nothing since the beginning of May. So be on the watch for getting back above this 350 level on DIA, and then I'd be watching these highs as well as this 351.09 high. But a nice recovery so far. Still a little bit of work to do on DIA. You want to see it get through the 50 and the 21 as well as yesterday's high too. So some work to be done on the Dow, but a little bit of strength today nonetheless. And then lastly, let's go to IWM, which got some boost from banks and oils and gas doing well today. So IWM staying above the 50-day, still just a teeny little bit below the 21 and the 8. That's going to be really right around that 224 level. So I'm going to set an alert here on IWM with you as well, because I want to know if IWM can get above that 224 area. So last one here, MDY, fighting for its life at the 50-day moving average, as you can see, slightly above it. So it actually ended up finishing slightly above it about 20 or 30 minutes before market close. It was not. So a very positive day for mid caps. You can see it didn't break yesterday's low. Actually, it did. You just can't really tell that close by about 14 cents, it looks like, and then got back above the 50. So although the action this morning was very poor, particularly for growth stocks, some decent recovery in the indices as well as in a lot of stocks. So let's talk about biotech here. And the reason I want to show this is because I use this XBI, excuse me, in addition to that G5 index. So the G5 is composed of ARKK, PDP, IWO. Hold up, I'm going to get them all. IWO, ARKK, PDP, QQQJ, and FFTY. So that is the G5. That's our proxy for the growth index. But I also look at XBI as a proxy for risk appetite, right? So today, XBI kind of undercut the 21 and bounced. It was up at the top of the range in the middle of the day, ended up finishing in the middle of the range, but above the 21. So just for example, as to how I would set alerts on this, and I use this just as kind of to give me an idea as to, you know, what is the risk on type of trade or the risk on stocks doing as far as to the upside or the downside. So in this scenario, I've got an alert set at 129, which will let me know if we cut through that low, or 129.21. And then I also have a downside alert at 128, which will let me know if XBI goes through the 50. Conversely, I have an alert at the high of today, and I have one at this 136.61 high. So I'm just looking to be alerted as to whichever direction this goes. But for the time being, a nice bounce off the 21 for XBI. Let's go to some leading stocks here. Snow. Very nice relative strength today. Phenomenal bounce right there off that 300 level in the 21. Snow, one of the early relative strength leaders and also one of the first to go back to green after a harsh sell-off in the first hour this morning. Always want to take note of that. ZI, one of the relative strength leaders essentially all day today. Very good action respecting the 21. AMBA, although this was slightly down, I'm going to talk about two gap ups, and I actually talked about them last week too. AMBA and Lulu, both holding up very well considering the fact that they just gapped, and they're very extended. So while you've got a lot of other growth stocks down 3, 4, 5, 6%. Lulu and AMBA really did not budge, and then they finished pretty well as on top of that. So AMBA, great action today, and then Lulu, also great action today. Just came back throughout the day, same type of scenario. Even when the markets were down, Lulu really was not down a ton. So Lulu and AMBA, two recent gap ups that acted pretty well over the course of today. A few more. DIS, Disney showing a little bit of relative strength. You can see maybe it's trying to resume a little bit of an uptrend, starting to respect the 8-day here on DIS. And lastly, for individual stocks, before we go to some sector stuff here, Upstart, very strong today, bounce off the 8-day exponential. And I am going to give you one more stock before we go to some of the sector stuff. I mentioned there's a possible shift in leadership in one sector, and that's going to be FSLR in the solar space. So look at the volume the last 4 days. Look at that breakout through 100. This is very, very powerful when you put it in context of what the other former leading stocks are doing in the same time. So I'm going to show you Sedge. You can see it looks pretty much like garbage right now. And I'm going to show you Enphase, also looks pretty much like garbage right now. So certainly a change in the dynamic in the solar world, and it looks like there's some serious money flowing into FSLR. So I'd get this one at the top of your list for the solar sector pretty quickly, because something seems to be going on here, and price is really all that matters, and you see the volume. So let's go to a few sectors real quick. I want to show you what was strong today, and I also want to show you a few stocks in these groups. So this is XOP. You can see this clean, nice move above all of these highs here, right? This consolidation, we got above all these highs. You can see these moving averages begin to converge. So a really nice day for oil and gas. I mentioned that was lifting small caps a little bit, but I want to show you a few names that are actually setting up in these sectors, right? So this is DVN. It is owned in-house, but trying to stay above the 21, closed above the 8 today, up 3%. Another leading name here in the oil and gas space, LNG. You can see this double bottom pattern is picking up, trying to get through these highs here. A little bit messy recently, but looks much better than many of the other oil and gas stocks. Also, XLF having a decent day today, reclaiming the 21. Interestingly enough, while interest rates were down, right? So when TLT is up, rates are down. So today, XLF is up, and you've got a couple of names, some big names in here that are setting up relatively decent. GS, Goldman Sachs, and MS, Morgan Stanley. And then lastly here on the finance and oil run, we're going to go to KRE, which is your regional bank. Similar scenario to what we looked at with FCX last week. You see all the moving averages converging there. And two names to watch in here, SIVB. You can see it is close to breaking out, had some volume today. And also SBNY, which maybe is a little bit stronger already, kind of breaking out, very, very, very close to it. So a few names in those sectors. One more individual name as I'm just going through my notes here, PanW. Big time relative strength today compared to other cybersecurity stocks, which were very weak for the most part. They did have an analyst today, but price is price, and you see the price there showing some relative strength versus the market and their peers today. And lastly, we also had SOX having a nice day today, while NVIDIA really wasn't doing anything. NVIDIA down 2 to 3% for the majority of the day, but some of these other names starting to maybe get a little bit of momentum. AVGO, this is a decent setup here. You can see the consolidation really in most of these names I'm going to show you from about February of this year. TXN, Texas Instruments, up 2% today. One more, let's give one more. Let's go Taiwan Semiconductor, TSM. So some of the other names starting to act a little bit better. And then on the flip side, you got semi equipment also starting to act a little bit better. This is a sector or an area that acted really poorly for a while, but semi equipment starting to come back to life. And the one caveat is ASML is the hands down leader of this group. It really has never acted bad since it's been on this run. It's acted much better than its peers. And I'm going to show you the peers here. This is going to be LRCX and Applied Materials. So both of these names, Applied Materials and Lam Research, starting to come back, but I would focus on this leader right here. ASML is the clear-cut leader in the group. So let's go to a few of the bad names for the day. Affirm, there was some antitrust news on Amazon, a big gap down pre-market. after an incredibly strong day on Friday. Finished down about 12%, but did come back, finish in the middle of the range. It's very, very volatile. I mean, this stock was down 16% or so, 17% at one point today, after being up 35% on Friday. So very, very volatile, but it is respecting this 100 level. It's respecting the 8. So I'd keep your eye on it, although this action is not necessarily the greatest here today on a firm. A few more, ETHE, which actually came back nicely throughout the day, and GBTC. Both of these very weak today, as crypto is kind of failing a little bit at the 21 EMA on both Ethereum and Bitcoin. And just a couple more here, guys. Dexcom owned in-house, a laggard today, but it did bounce off the 21 very, very nicely. One more in the medical space that really had a tough day, InMode. Just brutal sell-off on above average volume. I mean, almost down 13-14% at one point. But bounced off the 50 for what it's worth. And then last couple of losers here. Net, very poor reaction up front this morning, down 4 or 5%, came back, reclaimed the 21. And DraftKings, also similar action, down 4 or 5% this morning, but didn't cut below the 21. So Net and DraftKings, two laggards for sure today. And then last thing here, NUE, bouncing off the 50 a little bit, you might say there. I know I've talked about this one. It did undercut that 111 pivot, but it is on this 50-day. This is a name that has a tendency to slice through the 50-day, as you can see there here. So keep an eye on this one. Maybe it wants to retest 100. I'm not sure, but still really getting not much love today. XME, the metals and mining ETF, actually started off strong, finished very weak. So that's going to wrap it up for today, everybody. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the content. I hope it's valuable. If you have any questions, send me an email. I'd be happy to respond to you. If not, I'll see you all on the video on Thursday, as well as the podcast this weekend. So have a great week, everybody. Thanks again.